And the source that we're looking at is called the RTR Family Podcast.
Okay.
And they've got some pretty interesting observations and insights about the current state of the Indian cricket team.
Uh-huh.
And they're calling it one of the most dynamic teams in the world.
Right.
And, I think that that's something that I think we would all agree on.
Yeah.
They got this really interesting mix of experienced players.
Right.
The veterans, and also all this young talent that's coming up.
Yeah, it's a really exciting time for Indian cricket.
It is really exciting. But here's the thing that the RTR Family Podcast points out.
Yeah.
They're dominating, they're winning all these bilateral series.
Right.
But when it comes to the big ICC trophies, the World Cups, the Champions Trophy,
yeah,
those have been a little bit elusive.
they have.
So today we're going to kind of dig into why that is and what the future might hold.
It is kind of a puzzle, isn't it? You'd think a team with this much talent would be cleaning up on the global stage.
Right.
But they do point out some interesting challenges.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to those high-pressure knockout games and tournaments.
Yeah, that's what really jumped out at me, too.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we know that India has like a powerhouse batting lineup.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you still got Rohit Sharma, who can just demolish an attack.
Oh, yeah.
And Virat Kohli, who's, it's a legend.
A legend, yeah.
And then you've got these young guys like Shubman Gill, who's been like exceeding everybody's expectations.
He has.
And Yashasvi Jaiswal, I saw him play.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy is fearless.
Oh, he's incredible.
It's like every time he comes up to bat, it's a potential highlight reel.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But then the RTR Family Podcast points out something that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
They say that this aggressive style, which is super exciting to watch,
Right?
might actually be part of the problem in those crucial ICC knockout games.
Okay, I see what you mean.
What do you think about that?
Well, it's interesting because they suggest that the IPL might be playing a role here.
Okay.
The IPL is all about fast scoring, taking risks, going big.
Right.
And they argue that maybe that mindset is a double-edged sword.
So it works great in the IPL, but when you get to like those really intense tournament matches.
Yeah, they say that some players seem to struggle to adjust their game. They're so used to that like high octane pace of the IPL that when they need to build a patient strategic innings in a test match,
Right.
it's almost like they're speaking a different language.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And then there's the middle order, which the podcast says, kind of seems to be a bit of a weak link in those moments.
Yeah, that's another big point they raised.
Yeah.
They highlight a few players and they suggest that maybe it's a deeper issue with temperament and shot selection in those longer format games.
So it's like we've got this amazing batting talent, but it's almost like they need to find a way to like switch gears.
Yeah.
Like have two different playbooks.
Yeah.
One for the IPL and one for the international stage.
Precisely.
And they argue that finding that balance is going to be crucial.
Yeah.
If India wants to consistently win those ICC trophies.
For sure.
But let's not forget about the bowling attack.
Right.
Which has also undergone like a major transformation in recent years.
It has.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
They've got some serious firepower now.
Absolutely. You've got Jasprit Bumrah, who, when he's healthy, is probably one of the most feared bowlers in the world. Yeah. Especially in those crucial death overs.
Now, for those who might not be as familiar with cricket, can you explain like what makes death over bowling so important?
Sure.
And why Bumrah is such a key player?
So death overs are basically the last few overs of a limited overs match, like a T20 or a one-day international, where the batting team is just trying to score as many runs as possible.
Right.
So bowlers who can handle the pressure and restrict the runs in those final overs are like gold. And Bumrah, he's got this incredible ability to bowl Yorkers.
Right.
Which are really difficult to hit for boundaries.
That's why they call him the Yorker King.
Exactly.
But the RTR Family Podcast also mentions some concerns about death over bowling.
Yeah.
Especially when Bumrah's not available.
Right.
So what do they have to say about that?
Well, they point out that while India has other talented bowlers like Mohammad Siraj, who's really coming into his own,
right,
and the very experienced Mohammad Shami, Bumrah brings this unique skill set that's tough to replace.
Right.
So they suggest that developing more bowlers who can consistently deliver those difficult to hit deliveries, especially Yorkers, is going to be crucial for India's success in those tight finishes.
It's like they need a whole squad of Yorker kings.
Pretty much.
But what about the spin department?
Oh, yeah.
India's always been known for its world-class spinners.
Absolutely, and they're still a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
You've got the legendary spin duo of Ravindra Jadeja and Ravichandran Ashwin.
Oh, yeah, those two are like magicians with the ball.
They are.
What I love is how they can, like, control the game in any conditions.
Yeah.
They're not just wicket takers, they're strategists.
Right. And then you've got Kuldeep Yadav,
Yeah.
who's made a real comeback recently.
Yes, he has.
He adds another dimension to their attack.
So it seems like India has, like, all the pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Incredible batting, a versatile bowling attack.
Yeah. Trying to figure out why those strengths haven't translated into consistent success on the biggest stage.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
It's a mystery we need to solve.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like they need to crack the code.
Yeah.
Figure out how to bring all that talent together and perform consistently under that immense tournament pressure.
Right. And the RTR Family Podcast actually offers some pretty specific suggestions for how they might do that.
Uh-huh.
They highlight a few key areas that I think are worth exploring further.
Okay.
And the one that really caught my eye was the whole issue of captaincy.
Right.
Rohit Sharma, has been a fantastic leader,
He has.
but he's not getting any younger.
That's true.
And they make a really good point.
Yeah.
They need to start thinking about who's going to take over the reins.
It's a big decision.
It is a big decision.
You need someone who can, command respect, handle pressure,
Right.
and make those crucial tactical decisions in the heat of the moment.
Absolutely. And they suggest that maybe it's time to start grooming a successor.
Okay.
Give someone younger the opportunity to learn from Rohit
Yeah.
and gradually transition into that leadership role.
I like that idea.
Yeah, like a sort of apprenticeship for captaincy.
Exactly.
But who are they looking at as potential candidates?
Right.
Did they mention any names?
They didn't name anyone specifically,
Okay.
but they did highlight some qualities they think the next captain should possess. Strong communication skills, the ability to inspire and motivate the team,
Right.
and a deep understanding of the game across all formats.
Yeah, you need someone who can unite the team
Yeah,
and create that winning culture.
for sure.
But then there's also the whole question of the middle order.
yeah.
We talked about how that's been a bit of a weak link
Uh-huh.
in those big ICC games.
Right.
So what solutions did they propose for that?
Well, they actually suggested something quite interesting. They
Yeah.
said maybe India should consider having a slightly different batting lineup
Okay.
for test matches compared to T20s.
Wow, that's a pretty bold idea.
It is.
I mean, traditionally, teams try to maintain some consistency across formats.
Yeah.
But I can see the logic behind it.
Yeah.
Different formats demand different skills.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They argued that in test matches,
Yeah.
you need players who are patient, who can build an innings,
Right.
and who are comfortable playing those long strategic knocks.
Yeah.
Whereas in T20s, it's all about explosiveness and hitting boundaries from the get-go.
So they're saying that maybe some players who excel in T20s
Yeah,
aren't necessarily suited for the demands of Test cricket
right.
and vice versa.
Exactly. And they suggested that India might need to be more flexible
Well,
and adapt their team composition based on the format of the game.
it's kind of like having specialists
Yeah.
for each format, almost like in football or basketball where you have different players for offense and defense.
I think that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And they pointed out that this approach could actually help some players thrive
Okay.
by allowing them to focus on the format where they're strongest.
That's a really interesting perspective.
It is.
But it also raises another question.
Yeah.
If they start specializing players,
Yeah.
wouldn't that mean they need a larger pool of talent to draw from?
That's a valid point.
Yeah.
And they acknowledge that this strategy would require a robust domestic cricket system
Okay.
that can consistently produce high-quality players.
And that's where the IPL comes in.
Right.
Right. It's like this incredible breeding ground for young talent.
It is, and they emphasize the importance of the IPL
Uh-huh.
in nurturing the next generation of Indian cricketers.
Right.
They said it provides them with invaluable exposure to pressure situations
Yeah.
and the opportunity to play alongside some of the best players in the world.
It's almost like a boot camp
Yeah,
for aspiring international cricketers.
exactly.
But they also raised some concerns about the IPL's impact
They did.
on test match temperament,
Yeah,
didn't they?
they did. They suggested that maybe the IPL's heavy emphasis on aggressive boundary hitting batting
Right.
might be making it harder for some players to adjust to the more nuanced strategic approach required in Test cricket.
So it's like this constant balancing act.
Yeah.
Harnessing the benefits of the IPL.
Right.
While also ensuring that it doesn't inadvertently hinder their performance in other formats.
Precisely. It's a complex challenge, but one that I think India needs to address if they want to achieve consistent success across all formats of the game.
And speaking of challenges, they also talked about the fast bowling unit, right?
They did.
What were their thoughts on that?
Well, they made a really interesting observation.
Okay.
They said that while India has made significant progress in developing a strong pace attack, there's still room for improvement.
Okay.
Particularly when it comes to performing in different conditions.
Okay. I'm curious, what do they mean by different conditions?
Well, they pointed out that different countries have different types of pitches.
Right.
And some pitches are more conducive to fast bowling than others.
Okay.
For example, pitches in Australia and England tend to offer more bounce and movement for fast bowlers, whereas pitches in India can be slower and lower, which makes it harder for pacers to extract movement.
So it's not just about having raw pace.
Right.
It's about being adaptable.
Exactly.
And having the skills to bowl effectively on a variety of surfaces.
Precisely. And they suggested that India needs to focus on developing a more versatile pace attack that can handle those different conditions.